Hey friends, I'm Otis Gibbs, and this is Tom Bukovac. He's going to share some thoughts about the Beatles film, Get Back.
I was probably one of the last people to watch it, which is really weird because I consider myself to be one of the biggest Beatles fans that ever walked on this earth. I've been obsessed with them since I was a baby. You know, all I ever knew about music up until I was 13 years old was Beatles. My family, my sister, it's all I ever heard was Beatles. All my first records were all Beatles, you know. So that was, to me, I just thought it was just Beatles was all you get, all you had, all you needed. And then it was like, and then I started discovering other music. But for a guy that loves the Beatles that much, I don't know why I was like, wasn't really in a hurry to see it. And then I kept hearing all these people talking about it, right? And they would say things like, well, it's a hard watch, or it's kind of painful to watch, And then I finally, I wait till I get sick to watch something like that. Yeah, I think I got a cold or something, and then I had downtime, it wasn't working, and I had all this time to kill. So I sat right here and turned it on and watched it over the course of a couple of days, and just by myself. And parts of it are very painful to watch. It's like, it made me realize so many things about them, stuff that I probably had already sort of suspected, The thing about the Beatles that I think, among the many, many things that made them great, was their unbelievable ability to edit themselves. They would sit for hours and slog through just the most horrible sounding crap, fishing, trying shit. But boy, they knew when they found the good bits. And they knew, the Stones were good about that too. They knew how to sort of showcase and edit a bunch of shit to turn it into something, right? And man, to me, that's the most important part, man. They were amazing songwriters. And they were experimenting and trying shit, fucking around, unsuccessfully, until they hit the magic thing, and they knew when they found it. And man, you gotta give them credit for that, man. The way, when you hear the finished records, as opposed to the rough sounding crap that they're playing on that stuff when they're just slogging it out, it's unbelievable to think that it came that far, isn't it? Like with the amazing overdubs and stuff they put on. And how far those records came from what they started with, and how much it changed over the course of them writing the tunes. And a lot of people have said whoever they thought was their favorite Beatle changed a lot after they saw that movie, right? Like preceding seeing that movie, if somebody just randomly asked me who's your favorite Beatle, I would always say George. I just thought he was the coolest, and I think they're all extremely cool, believe me. But they were just kids when they made that shit. You got to remember, they weren't even 30 years old, and they were doing that colossal, groundbreaking shit. George was being a little brat. John could be a little brat. It seemed to me from watching that, I think I'm not alone in the sense that Ringo was trying to be cool, and Paul was really the one just trying to get it together. He just wanted everybody to get along. He was just trying to make it cool. And man, just getting opposition at every turn from the others, man, except Ringo. And man, that had to be frustrating for him, man. He was just trying to do his thing, and he seemed like he really liked it when they would join in and collaborate. But they were fighting him at every turn, man, and it made me respect him a lot more, just thinking, John and George could be a bit of a brats at times, and they were both immensely talented, but not great team players, it seemed, right? But man, watching that gave me a lot more respect for Paul. And the main takeaway I took away from that painful 8 hours is what a call to arms it was when they had to go up on that roof and do that thing. Because none of them were prepared, and they were sweating it. And boy, when they got up there, man, all those years of all that entertainment experience that they had came right out, man. And they turned that shit into something magic. And it was so cool to see how much it elevated when they actually had fire under their ass, and they had to pull it out. Boy, and then you go, well, that's the fucking Beatles. That's why they were the greatest live band in history, because they could sing like that, and they could play like that live. 3 amazing singers, all in the same band. That would have been the best lead singer of any band on their own, all in the same band. And 3 legendary songwriters all in the same band. I mean, it's a deadly mix, man. And boy, when they got up there on their roof and they had something to prove, man, the electricity of that, astounding, man. Jesus, and what Billy Preston had. Billy was like the secret sauce that I think made them up a level. They were trying to play as good as he was playing, because he came in, he was a ringer, and they were like, we can't let this guy outplay us, so we got to bring it. And man, what an awesome show that was. And the way that shit sounds up on that roof doesn't seem like it's very doctored up either. I think that's kind of how it sounded. I mean, I know it was mic'd with some really nice mics and shit, running down the stairs to the studio, but man, that shit sounds pretty good. And the vocals are really good. No, I think you could see them being reminded of that feeling of why we were a great band when they got up there. And because you've been on gigs like that where you were in a band that really cooked at one time, but you haven't played in a long time. And then for some reason you might do a reunion gig or something, and you get up on stage and you're like, oh man, I hope we play good. Then you start playing and all of a sudden you're like, fuck, we were a pretty good band, right? They were feeling that. And they were like having fun with it because it was a cool idea, as silly as it was. The part of that movie that just made me cry, I cry at everything now because ever since I had kids, but I was in tears, man, when they were interviewing the people on the street during that. Lord, I just want to cry thinking about it right now. Just like all those sweet people just like running from their jobs, going from one place to another. It's like, who's up there playing? Oh, it's the Beatles, right? Oh, I really like the Beatles. They're good lads. And all those sweet people. And like the polarizing opinions, some people loved them, some people, I don't really like them very much, And all the girls, the way they were so appreciative that they were up there doing that. All those totally English people were so cool, man. And I just love that part where they had the mic down the street and they were interviewing the people, older people, younger people, just getting their opinions about what do you think about all this shit that's going on. So cool, man. Wasn't it?
I loved it.
Oh,
I loved everything.
Yeah.
Their volume when they're recording was really low, and the way everyone played was really a nice one. They had the overhead mic picking up some vocals as they were rehearsing or whatever, and you could hear the vocals pretty clearly.
Yeah.
Even though there are guitar amps going and a drummer.
Yeah. No, but got to keep in mind, those guys were singers first. And any singer, I don't care who they are, if they can't hear themselves singing, they ain't happy. And the Beatles were not only were they singers, but some of the best singers that ever lived. So that was their main concern, was the singing. So that's why they played so soft, because they were singers. And man, that's what you always see. But you watch those 70s Eagles concerts, the original band, they're playing very soft. They're singers. The only people that want to play really loud are people that don't sing, right? That's it. So, I mean, the Beatles were all about singing, boy. And unrelated, but slightly related, was like, those guitars that they played, those acoustics that they used on their Hard Day's Night era, those Gibson J160Es with a pickup in them. They kind of look like country and westerns, but they're kind of a little more sloped, and they have those weird P90 looking pickups at the end of the fingerboard. Have you ever played one of those? They are the worst sounding guitars. They're about a third the volume of like a regular acoustic guitar. They sound like they're stuffed full of socks. They have about as much acoustic volume as like a 335. Seriously. Like if you're sitting there, a 335 would be about the same output. It amazes me if that's really what they were using. how did those acoustic guitars sound so good on like Hard Day's Night? And somebody pointed out to me, maybe the reason they liked those guitars is because they were so quiet, because they were singers. You know, you don't want a big ass booming fucking, you know, Martin to sing over when you're trying to fucking, you know, maybe that's why they like those guitars, because they could sing right over them like nothing. Those J160Es are comically quiet. Every one of them. I've played hundreds of them. I've never seen one that sounded any louder than a 335.
Wow.
Unplugged. So I think maybe that's why they like those. But then you would think, well, how the fuck did they get those unbelievable acoustic sounds on those records? That couldn't have been a J160E. There's no way. Like you hear like on the 63, 64 era Beatles, how good those acoustics sound on those records. That cannot be a J160E. It can't. I know they used Martins later, you know, like Blackbird and all that shit was all Martin. But those, like I Should Have Known Better and all those, that's flogging acoustics, man. They sound rich and fat. Can't be that guitar. It just can't. That's a mystery that somebody out there knows the answer to. I can't imagine that was that guitar. I can't believe it. If you're ever in a music store and you see one of those, pick it up. You won't believe it. Yeah. Man, they used them, so there must have been something to them. But I don't know, man. I thought the only reason they used them because there was a pickup, because they could plug it in. Yeah. But you see, like in the Hard Day's Night movie, in the black and white stage scene where they're handing those guitars around, Ringo hands them one. It's that guitar. Wow. But they're like that acoustic right there is 3 times louder, and that's just a run-of-the-mill old K. Like those things are like there's nothing to them. It's weird. I never could understand that.
The SG that Ursay has.
Yeah.
Have you played that?
Oh yeah.
What are your opinions of that?
It needs a setup and everything, but it's a nice guitar. Sounds good. Like that was actually the first guitar I ever played on one of those gigs. The first time I ever jammed with Ursay at any of his like little get-togethers was totally impromptu, and I picked that guitar off the wall and plugged it in as a little Tweed Deluxe. And you guys know any songs? I don't know. What do you know? And me and Kenny Wayne Shepherd. It's like, I don't know. I'll sing a blues song and see. Mike Mills standing there like, see, okay, you know. You know how it is. Blues is like the number 101 thing that you pick up if nobody knows the song. I think I know blues. So I played that guitar, and it sounded great, but it's like it has all those guitars need some setup. You know, they haven't been played in a long time, you know. But it's a nice guitar, man. I have one just like it. It's great. I'm so funny about guitars. I am obsessive. Like you said, you were obsessive about some things. If a guitar isn't 100% set up right and in tune, I can't tell what it is. So that could be one of the best guitars in the world, but until I get some frets in it and get it the way I want it, I can't tell. Right? I do remember it sounding good, you know, and then I noticed that some SGs seem to have a lot more mid-range than others. That's what I look for. That one had the bite, so it sounded good. But you know, man, all these old guitars are so different. Every 335 is totally different than the next one. Every SG, every one of them is a whole nother mystery.